Miguel. Thank you, Salvador. I really would like to have this panel like a chat or a conversation between all of you. If you have any question, if you have any doubt, please just tell us, and we will try to have this conversation. Because I don't know how many of you are familiar with blockchain. I don't know how many of you are familiar with crypto assets, with tokenization. So we may be talking about things that you don't really care, or that you are not familiar with, or maybe you are and we are just saying things that you already know, and you would like to maybe prefer to speak about any specific point you have doubts with. So please feel free to ask and make any question or suggestions. Well, take the advantage that we have here two guys that are working very hard, that know really what is happening, what is going on, and what is happening not only in Spain but also around the world. They are traveling a lot, and they are making a great job to bring their projects to life. Okay, you first.
Just a question on Tutela.
Okay.
How does it make?
Would you please? I don't understand the value proposition for Tutelas. Does it? How is it supposed to make money if it's trading tokens away? When do the tokens come back?
Okay, so your question is how we make, who pays the party? Okay, so we have two models or two entities to pay the party, okay? So in the short term, as I told you before, but I didn't have enough time to explain better, right? Our revenues is very simple to understand. Our revenue is the monthly active users we have multiplied by the conversion. Conversion is the number of clients we get this month over the number of total users, okay? So with the classical model, we have small monthly active users, because not all people access every month because studying blah, blah, blah. And typical conversion, for example, we are around 3% conversion in the platform, in the application, okay? So with this model of tokens, the conversion increase because there are a lot of people helping other people to study and to learn more. So all these people who have been helped, they are happier, they spend more money because they are learning more. So the conversion grows from 3 to 4%. And at the same time, the monthly active users, maybe we multiply it by 3, 4. So the result of the simple equation, much more monthly active users and more conversion, means that the revenues of the company can increase around 4, 3, 5 times respect all the traditional model. And in the long term, we also work with companies that are looking for hiring people. I mean, for us to hold, if you are a student and you want to hold your relevance, I mean, you don't want to get the cash, you want the relevance. For us, it's very important, and for you should be very important also, because if you are the guy who knows more about blockchain and as an attorney in Madrid, and there's a company who are looking for people with your profile, they can come to Tutelus to look for people with the most relevance. So they will pay us to be able to hire you. So these are the two revenue sources.
I guess it's the Americans who have the questions.
I don't think it's working. So do you have the other? Can we have the other one, please?
Thank you. I know a lot of people who are in the securities business back in New York, and some of the older ones don't want to touch any of this. But some of my younger colleagues want to train in cryptocurrency and in tokens, but it's frightening to them because of the tremendous fluctuations in value. Do you think that it's better off leaving it unregulated so you'll have these fluctuations? Do you see that the EU and the US regulators will start treating tokens and cryptocurrency like securities and therefore bring some stability to the market? Is that would that be good for the market, or that would be bad for your market?
I think fluctuation has nothing to do with the regulation. I think fluctuation has to do much more with speculation. To bring an example, in 2000, you have companies with really small value, but they were public on Nasdaq. They worth millions and billions of dollars, and on April 15th of 2001, basically they went to zero. So I think that you can have a regulated asset, or you can have an unregulated asset, but the speculation is what brings the value up and high, not the regulation. I think that we will have a regulation in 2019, also not only in the States with the SEC. And I think is if you think in the States, all of the biggest venture capital in San Francisco, like Andreessen Horowitz or Sequoia or Draper, they have just set up funds just investing in crypto assets. So I think they think that there will be something valuable in the future, because these companies, venture capital by nature, they are not in short-term investors. They are like within 3 to 5 years investment period. So I think that at the end of the day, they all thinking that regulation will come. I think regulation will help to. I'm not sure if it will help to remove a speculation of the market of some assets, but it will help to give certain security and legal certainty.
Yeah, going back to your question again, regulation. Well, Salvador, you have a very good opinion about regulators and legislators. I'm afraid that regulation could kill these business models and even kill the technology. Blockchain has been brought this far because it was not regulated, or it was not specifically regulated. We have enough regulation to cover, I would say, most, even almost all the questions regarding blockchain and the blockchain use. But the thing is that we lawyers need to understand this new technology. And once we understand the technology, we will see that a lot of the laws that we already know, a lot of the laws that we already apply, do apply to blockchain and do apply to blockchain transactions. So the most important thing is for us, for legislators, to understand this technology. And there's a big risk in issuing new laws, passing new laws, without really understanding the technology. And it's not that we are not smart people. It's not that. The thing is that not even them know what will happen in the next months. We are living completely a revolution, and things are changing very fast. Diego said, well, talk about Bitcoin, and I was surprised when he said that Bitcoin is not a big deal. Maybe now it's not a big deal, but for me it's amazing what Bitcoin has brought to our world. It's really making the revolution, because blockchain, as you know, is the technology underlying under Bitcoin. It's the technology that makes Bitcoin work, and there was nothing before like that. No, so I don't know if all of you are familiar with the blockchain, or does anyone don't really understand the concept? Or
I would like to hear about it.
Yes.
Okay, blockchain, it's a distributed ledger technology. So, any change? Ledger. What is a ledger? Who could say what a ledger is?
You mean an accounting ledger?
For example, yeah.
Okay.
What is an accounting ledger?
I took one accounting class, so you got assets on one side, liabilities on the other, and they have to add up.
Okay, so what would mean that? What would be a distributed ledger? Distributed ledger. Okay, the distributed is the opposite of non-distributed. Traditionally, we have had ledgers that had been kept by a single player. For example, a bank. How much money do you have? You know the money you have? You think you know the money you have? Don't be that sure. You have the money that the bank says you have. It's not the money you think you have. Maybe today you got a receipt. You didn't expect that receipt to reach to your account. And it arrived, and you have less money than you thought yesterday. So you don't have the money you think. You have the money the bank says. And this money is kept in the ledger. Okay? Every day, the ledger registers transactions. And the bank keep that ledger. And usually, well, we had banks, we have power companies, we have all different companies keeping ledgers. And those were third parties we trusted. Were trusted third parties that were keeping those ledgers. And what has been in the last years the main problem with those ledgers that are kept by a single company? Diego told about security. We have seen that cyber attacks are increasing every day. Many in the financial industry, many different problems we are having with phishing and many other ways in which hackers and people are trying to get our money. At the end, the bank is paying, and all the insurance companies are paying if this happens. But there is a risk there, and there is a problem there. So now, traditionally, we have single entities keeping a ledger. What is the revolution? The revolution with blockchain is that the ledger is distributed. If we all reach an agreement, we could build a ledger, and we could custody, every one of us, that ledger. There will be a copy of the ledger, the registration of the assets, of whatever, and we all would have a copy of it. And every time a transaction would be done in that ledger, if there is a receipt, then the company that's me, I'm receiving the receipt, I will notify all of you that I have received that receipt. And I will notify following the rules that we have previously established. And when I inform you that this has been received, you will control that everything is correct, and all of you will write that transaction in the ledger. So we'll all have a copy of the same ledger, and that copy will be continuously updated. What happens if I do it, if I modify the ledger without respecting the rules that we have agreed, you will not accept that modification of the ledger. Okay? Your systems will not accept the modification of the ledger. So that's very important and give us a great solution against cybersecurity issues and those attacks that the ledgers may have. Because when someone attacks a ledger that is distributed, that the custody is distributed among all the users, in order, in the way, I'm not going to go deeper, but the way it works is that in order to get that modification, he should attack at least half of the players. Yet we are not many people in this table. Maybe a few big hacker with some power could hack half plus one of the computers, of our computers, and could make a modification of the ledger. But things change when we increase the amount of people using the technology. So if we talk about thousands of people, thousands of copies of the ledger, and thousands of copies that have to be attacked in order to get the money, then we are making things very hard for all those thefts, for all those people that try to get our assets. So this is completely a security revolution. People that really don't understand this technology normally say many things about the problems with money laundering or terrorist financial, which has nothing to do with this. Those problems happen everywhere, and don't happen more with blockchain than in other areas. And I would say it happens less, because it's going to be harder for communities, for groups, to get all together in order to allow those kind of transactions. So blockchain is just a ledger with the big thing that it's distributed. The custody of the ledger is and the operation of the ledger is distributed among all the users. We can say all the users, but there are several different kinds of blockchains. So once we have said this, what was, and Bitcoin has been working for almost 10 years, almost 10 years, right? Why now? Why are we talking that much now about blockchain? Why these years? Why all the ICOs? It's what, 3 years? Not even 3 years, less than 3 years. Why now? It's because Ethereum appeared. Ethereum brought a new step and did what Diego also said. Constructed the smart contracts. Smart contracts, which some people say that are not that smart and are not contracts, but well, we could have a session about that. Smart contracts at the end are, I would say, just small programs in the ledger. Imagine in the ledger that automatize processes. Okay, so if a certain thing happens, certain reaction will follow. And this was brought to the ledger with Ethereum. The first thing, one of the first things that was done with Ethereum, and you may be familiarized, is the DAO. And with the DAO, what happened was a crowdfunding activity in order to get funds for an organization to invest. That crowdfunding was done using smart contracts, and it got a lot of money, and it was seen by many different companies, like many others. Look, I had the figures here. In 2016, 51 ecos were launched, and they got $98.7 million US. Last year, 2017, 456 ecos were launched, and they got $6.5 billion. This year, up to date, we have 906 ICOs that have raised 21.5 billions of dollars. We are living a revolution in which these players, all the companies, will be able to get capital in a different way. As they said, they want to change the rules. They don't need anymore the share capital, the traditional capital we know. They want to get new people investing in their companies, and they want to give the power to that people. New investors in these companies with this technology will own the companies. Of course, they will not be taking the decisions of the company. It's them to take the decisions. But the new investors will trust them in order to take those decisions. They will just put the money. And maybe they may put the money to get a profit, maybe in a speculative way. Or maybe they just want to put the money because they want to be part of the system. Because maybe, well, they want to buy a course. Maybe they want to get one of the products they are selling, and they can use it with the tokens. And we are now living a tokenization of assets, which brings that we are changing from the internet of information to the internet of value. We are in a process in which, as Salvador said, many assets will be tokenized. What means the tokenization of assets? It will be the digitalization of assets. So we will have water, we have petrol, and we will be able to digitalize those assets and bring them in commerce. And in order to sell those assets, we will not have to exchange the product itself. We will exchange the token representing the asset. So I hope things are a bit more clear for those that didn't have it. But in any case, still we are still, of course, available for any question or.
Let me add one thing about your question about regulators and legislators and all that. Ethereum was born with an ICO, right? So if Ethereum had 3 years ago the regulation that regulators try to put today, we wouldn't stay here, and ICOs wouldn't exist, and no money would be here.
And not even
No one.
Ethereum.
No Ethereum.
Not even Ethereum.
Nothing.
No, the thing is that's why the European Commission has not taken any step yet. I think it was a month ago, the last meeting of the commissioners, and in Vienna, I think it was, and they said, we don't know if we need to make a regulation for blockchain. We may have laws enough for or to supervise the activity with blockchain, but at the moment we don't know how those laws that we may already have would apply. So if you have all these doubts, you should avoid issuing any law, because you are going to do it wrong. You have to understand, you have to really understand the technology, the pros and cons, what are the consequences of the technology. We, lawyers, must do an exercise. Legislators must do an exercise. We really have to study. We really have to understand all this that is going on in order to make these people available to proceed with this revolution. So be careful, I always say, be careful with regulation. And you are coming from the States, SEC, yeah. I'm really against those movements of SEC last year. But I would say those were not SEC movements. It's not that SEC started a file or an inspection against someone. No, just someone from SEC came to the media and said, well, you know, this way to invest, we think, or I think, this is regulated by the securities law. It was his opinion. Opinion of one person, yeah, an important person within the SEC. But if a SEC starts an inspection and even finds someone, that fine can be appealed. So our system is created in order to get decisions supervised in order to give a fair justice. And here we have one person from an important body saying that he thought, well, you are no one to say what you think when you influence the market the way you do. Because what happened afterwards? Regulators of almost every country said, yes, we can talk about security tokens and utility tokens, as the SEC is saying, not the SEC, that person from SEC. And yes, all we have here are security tokens, and they must fulfill with the security regulation. Security regulation applied to this? It's nonsense. We really have to understand it and see what we have to apply and how we have to apply it. So again, be careful with the regulation.
Well, I don't know if... Oh, no. Then go ahead. I was going to make a question.
Okay, so it's a little bit for you. You are competing with bank, right? And, well, I don't know how are the Spanish banks' movement against it. What happened in Brazil, one of our biggest banks simply closed the account of one of those new business, very interesting ones. And of course, they have some reason to do that. And the real reason, we know you're competing. But what they said, and in Brazil you can do, as long as there's a prior notice of 30 or 60 days, you can say, okay, I have no commercial interest with your account, which is not true. And of course, they can argue some compliance issue which they did not. So it's still under our judiciary. There is our superior court ruling, but just on this specific case, and they did not, the lawyers did not a good job on doing the right defense, like saying, look, the real reason. So our superior court could not enter into the real reason of competing and something like that. So the ruling that is valid nowadays is that the bank could close this account. And then of course, it's terrible, it's anti everything, a great bank doing that. So I'll hear if there is something as ugly as it happened there, or how's the banking movement in here. And about blockchain, the first time I understood, it was I saw a very short movie like Blockchain for Kids. So that's how I could understand it. And I highly recommend if you have difficulty in understanding it.
Elisa, I just would like to add something, a question, just because. Yeah. Well, in Brazil, the Brazilian Securities Exchange Commission took an approach very similar to the American one. And I understand that in the beginning that might be a good thing not to be regulated, because you can foster this sort of market. But I'm very much worried about the protections for investors and the mechanisms that they might not count with if we do not have any sort of regulation. So I would like to know your views if a sandbox regulation or some sort of very soft regulation might work, because it could try to follow the pace of technology, at the same time giving some sort of protection for investors. So I just would like to know your views about that.
Okay, regarding the first question, banks, we are not, many fintechs around the world, they are saying that banks are dead and banks are evil, so we are not in that mood. We simply think that we can build a platform that basically engage more with the consumers, because at the end of the day, the data transformations for the banks is really, really difficult. Not because the people managing the banks are stupid. It's because they have super legacy of technology. They have also an institutional legacy. They can basically disrupt themselves in terms of that. All of them are pretty much based, at least in Europe, all the banks are based on, I think in the world, on interest rate. In Brazil is different, but in the European Union, we have been in negative interest rates since, I think, a couple of years ago, and we will not have interest rate of 8 to 10% in the next 50 years, probably because we will cap the growth. So our point is that the banks, at least in Europe, they are looking to these challenger banks, new economic models. They don't like, because at some point they think that we can remove part of the customer base. And what I think is that some of them will try to consolidate those banks. But they are powerful, they are trying to put some barriers, but I think they are not, at least in the European Union, they cannot say just like, hey, we are going to go for you because we have a security system and a legal system. So I think that at some point what we will see in the future is that we will see this kind of startups and fintechs cooperating with banks, and I think that's already happening. And regarding the regulation, just one thing, I'm not pro-regulation. I think that the state always try to be in our lives, in every single part of our lives. But what I think is that when, as in blockchain you tokenize assets, and assets has a value. At some point, you need to try to protect the investors. Not only the investors, but the people. I think that we have these ICOs, many of them were really good projects, rising like thousands of millions of dollars, and some of them rising like 100 millions just with a paper or a PowerPoint presentation. And I lived that like 20 years ago in the bubble. But also, many of them were basically scams, where you send the money and the people will disappear. So at some point, obviously you have regulations now, and you have laws that can enforce this kind of actions and can pursue those guys doing that things, and it has nothing to do with the blockchain. But one thing is that it's really difficult that the regulators will move at the same speed that the technology moves today. So that's my point. And that's not going to happen in the short term. And we are getting in a world where you have more and more and more technological breakthroughs, and the regulators won't be able to follow that. You were talking about artificial intelligence in the previous workshop. For example, we are issuing our token in Malta because there is a legal framework in the European Union. And I think that the next regulation in Malta will be artificial intelligence. So you will have this kind of countries moving a step ahead of other countries, but it won't be easy. At least I think we want to expect to have a huge regulation of a lot of topics we will see in the next years.
Small comment.
I think we have to finish.
Okay, last question.
No, just not a question. Just, I'm sure our courts will not allow banks are doing it, but if now it's not lawyers' fault because they couldn't imagine the judiciary say, okay, it's under our regulation nowadays. But even if there's no change in the regulation, and I'm sure our courts are not, just have to address it to the judiciary in the right and expected way, so that they say, okay, no, it's anti-competition, anti-whatever. I'm sure there's going to be security there also.
I'm sure.
Okay, this is very interesting topic. I as a matter of fact, I have few questions, but I cannot make them. So let's go. We'll have some time later to have a coffee and maybe discuss about ICOs, blockchain, and of course artificial intelligence. But let's get to the next roundtable.